Hi, Zach Reiser here, and welcome back to another bass effects review video. Today I will be getting into the mission control from Spaceman Effects. This video is going to be quite a bit different than many of my reviews because frankly the mission control is very different than any other pedal I've ever demoed. In fact, you might not even call it a pedal. It's really more of an expression or CV controlling system. Now that being said, it does some gorgeous kind of VCA type things, so volume swells, tremolos, etc. But where it really shines is when you combine this with other pedals, which of course is one of my favorite things to do. Starting with the simplest version or simplest setup for the mission control, I'm going to use it as a standalone pedal for these volume effects. As usual, here's my bass's dry tone, Dingwall ABZ 6-string on the neck pickup. So let's start with the first two modes, which are essentially momentary one-shot loops. So as I'm holding down the pedal, it will swell in via the attack time and then sustain at full volume. And when I let go of the pedal, it will release according to the release knob. The next two modes are very similar, except now you can't hold the pedal down to sustain at that max volume. Once you tap the switch, it just goes through the attack and release at whatever speed you have set. So let's try that with some slow attack and release times here. So the next two modes are essentially tremolos or LFOs, so it's cycling the attack and release when you push down the button. And then lastly is the trigger mode, and this is essentially every time you press the pedal, it will do the attack, and then the next time you press the pedal, it will do the release separately. All right, so that was all just the mission control by itself. So now it's time to start using the effects loop sections, which is where it really gets cool. So now I have the mission control set up in its one-shot loop with pretty long attack and release times, but I have my BEAD fuzz pedal in the loop of the mission control, and then I'm running the mission control into a little bit of reverb on the Strymon Volante. So now when I press the activate button, it's going to essentially blend in fuzz with my dry signal, and you heard a little bit of this at the beginning of the video. So you can hear it's a really unique effect. It's different than just using like a volume pedal, for instance, to swell in your fuzz, because it's blending it with my dry signal. So you get this cool textural change that's slowly changing over time. So I've turned on my Boss OC2 Octaver, and I still have that BEAD fuzz pedal in the loop. But now I'm using a quick kind of momentary switch, so I can just pull that fuzz in just on certain accents when I want it. Same effect setup. I have the OC2 running into the mission control and then the BEAD fuzz in the effects loop of the mission control. But now I'm using one of those looping or LFO setups here. And when I push activate, it turns on the LFO. When I push it again, it turns off the LFO. So you can go from that fat subby octave sound into this kind of pulsing fuzzy sub-octave sound. So now still using the LFO mode, except now I'm running a Eventide crystals effect in the loop of the mission control. And I've actually turned the offset up a little bit because I don't want it to fully go away every time. I want there to be a little bit of that shimmeringness in the background, but really slow attack and release times here for these nice, slow, subtle swells. One more simple effects loop example, I now have a Harmonizer, a fifth from my Eventide, running in the effects loop that I can bring in and out whenever I choose. So now moving on to the CV or expression side of things. This actually has nothing to do with audio. In fact, I could completely unplug the mission control if I wanted to, completely out of my audio chain, and it would still function perfectly fine. But now it's essentially sending triggered gates or LFOs via CV or expression. So I have bypassed the mission control, so there's no audio running through it, and I have my Fairfield Circuitry Randy's Revenge ring modulator, that's a tongue twister, on right now, and that sounds like this. And now when I press the activate switch, even with the pedal off, it's going to send that quick gate to the Randy's Revenge, which essentially is going to make the pitch go flying up and down. So now I have the mission control sending an LFO to the cutoff frequency of my Moog low-pass filter. And the Moog itself has no way of doing like an auto wah or an auto filter, but with the mission control, that's exactly what I'm getting. And of course, changing the attack and release time would change the speed of the auto filter or auto wah setting I have on the Moog. So now I have the CV output of the mission control still controlling the cutoff of my Moog low-pass filter. But in the loop of the mission control, I have my BEAD fuzz pedal that is swelling in and out with my signal. And then in front of the mission control, I have my Boss OC2 for some fat, subby octaver. So now I'm combining all three functions of the mission control. I have turned the blend knob all the way down. So now I am swelling in some crystals and the fuzz, and then I'm expression or CV controlling my Moog filter, but then it's also swelling in the overall volume of the signal. So I'm using kind of the internal volume effect of the mission control. One more effect combo for you here. I'm running my Boss OC2, but as a standard octaver, so my dry signal is still in there. And then I'm running that into the mission control, which is effects loop blending in a fifth from my Eventide H9, and yet again, that BEAD fuzz pedal, running into a little bit of reverb again from the Strymon Volante. So that is my demo of the mission control from Spaceman Effects, an incredibly unique and useful utility device. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe below. I'll be back very soon with more effects pedal demos and performance videos. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.